obviously I've given a presentation in this day that's in the archives, on Randolph. And by the way, guys, if you got questions and you feel you don't want to wait till the end, go ahead and give me a yell and we'll stop and take a look. But anyway, Randolph, as you guys remember, I've given a presentation on this particular section of my railroad, which was the latest edition. And you see that it ends right here. You can see at the bottom of the screen, you have the main line, a couple good old map pins are in there to stop the cars. But anyway, uh, I got the land grant from the CEO of the household. So, this area is also the family room. So I'm able to add a section. I decided I wanted to add it for the elevator. And I, of course, use L-girder bench work. It's throughout the railroad. I like it. It's easy, I think, to assemble. It's 2x2 legs. Uh, you got 1x4s with a 2x2 top if you're using dimensional. I myself used to be a woodworker, so a lot of times I will have where I go out in the garage and I had 2x4s, cut up 2x4s, 2x2s anyway. So the L-girder bench work is here. Obviously, I've got Homosote that I got a friend who's one of the guys in our group, Tuesday Night Roundhouse. We have a round robin of 9 gentlemen now. And anyway, he had some extra Homosote, so I didn't have to go buy a full sheet. So that worked out perfect for this one. So sizing it up a little bit. But you may ask, why I like the L-girder, which is an old style bench work, obviously. But if you notice the stringers underneath the table, underneath the top, excuse me, you notice you put the legs, you throw in some sheetrock screws, the drywall type screws, the coarse. You got the width set, then you can put in the long girders. The other beauty of it is that middle girder, if you're up on top laying track or you want to put a switch machine, it turned out the turnout is right over it. You come under here, you pull out a few screws, because I don't attach the bottom at all, just the top to hold the upper plywood, and you pull a couple screws and you can move that in farther away. So that's the beauty, I think, of the L-girder bench work. Obviously, I believe all bench work should be painted for moisture absorption, and it helps cut down on the movement of the wood and the Homosote itself. So obviously, I use a latex paint. You guys have seen this slide before, where I I have one for the bench work, and I have, of course, a brown for the what I call a light brown for the Homosote to give it a. And the reason for the gray, by the way, is a lot for all the bench work and the fascia is in study of colors, which over the years I've been involved in doing picture framing, and so you got to get into colors, etc. And I do a lot of painting. As a result, black is a color, as if you've studied colors, absorbs all colors. Okay, and we know white reflects all colors. So the eye does not like black because it's absorbing colors. So automatically on a railroad, that you paint the fascia black or the bench work, the eye is going to pop up immediately to the railroad. But anyway, you see here we've attached now the painted Homosote, and you've heard me preach before about don't glue that Homosote if you use it. Nail it, and you can nail it like you would. The various nails go in at different angles, and it'll hold just fine. And the reason for doing it via gluing is sound transfer, because as soon as you glue it, you're making one big sounding board. If you nail the Homosote and angle them with nails, it won't act. The sound will act. That air gap that's there will act as a slight sound barrier. Then, of course, you got to add the track, and in my case, it's then draw a center line onto the Homosote, and obviously those are all easement curves that you see up there. On what's being is the track to the right is the extension of the Wabash interchange, not the Wabash, excuse me, Chicago Great Western interchange, and the other one is just an extension of the main line from Randolph. And you've heard me say before, to make an easy easement curve, all you got to do is take a 3-foot ruler, metal wood, bend it from point A to point B at the two straights, and you got a beautiful easement curve drawing a line. So anyway, then once the center line, I like Midwest Fork. Uh, I model even the MNS, the small short line, 70-mile line, which I use as my basis for this my railroad. It all raised a main line. And as a result, the Midwest Cork, I was told there was a shortage of it. However, I went to the hobby shop and he said, "Hey, guy, you're lucky. I just got in 10 cases." So, anyway, and also on track, I don't nail track. I'm old school. I spike everything, even the new track. So, as a result, I used to really like the Shinohara spikes, but nowadays all you can get is micro engineering. So anyway, we've now got, you can see that I've added the fascia, and I've always liked doing scenery work. So immediately I knew that that corner over there by the interchange with the CGW, where it could be add a little grass. So a woodland scenics right away, threw in some blended turf. I happen to use the green blend. And if you see here in this scene, threw some tough grass tufts along the edge of what is the anchor glass plant over there. And the bench work at this point is almost done. I'll put a shelf eventually on the bottom down there, but that can wait till the winter and the snow flies when I'm in the mood on a nice day because the table saw is out in the garage, so the 10-inch. Anyway, I've built elevator. It's ready for the elevator, and I've built them in the past. And this one I built many years ago, and that's a Stratmore built on Stratmore. It's a kitchen tinfoil. At that time, I there was I didn't have anything, so I used a bastard file, which I read some gentleman had used to put the kitchen tinfoil on it to create the corrugated siding. So I used that. Stratmore, like other materials, comes in plies. It's 5,000 thick. You can get up to 5 plies. But anyway, that's what this one was built on. Then this sits in my town, Little Chicago. Then the second elevator, I went with the Walters one, that Valley Growers they have, and of course it's nice from the fact that it has the corrugated siding on it, which is common to all the Midwest elevators that I have worked with. And by the way, that former elevator, for what it's worth, did sit on the prototype of this elevator, sat on the Emmett St. L, and then eventually Northwestern, and it got tore down before the UP got it. Now this one, the thing about this one that I did not like the kit is that it comes with that crib building, which is the back one attached. So I had to rework it to put clapboard siding on its terrain, and I built the front office and the ramp into it that I thought was really hokey that Walters did, because all the elevators I know, the scale is just a concrete, usually slanted ramp going up. So anyway, this time I thought I'd try the Walters Farmer Cooperative Elevator. And I also, in there and going through the Walters catalog, I have one to go look at pictures. Saw the trackside dealership, which had the same corrugation, which had corrugated on it already, and decided that had a couple of nice buildings. And the elevator kit itself comes with that building that you see there to the left off the elevator. The only problem with this particular elevator is that it has, of course, clapboard siding. All the elevators I've looked at, or I have photos of that are in the area here in Minnesota that I've hunted, they're all corrugated. So it had to be corrugated sheeting. So this elevator at this point, we're ready for the sheeting. Now, I, of course, looked in the drawer and the supplies I had, and I thought I was going to use Campbell's. And I found I only had 3 small packs, and that wasn't going to make a dent in the siding. So digging a little further, I found this Alpine plastic that I'd bought, and I have looked this up recently, and it's no longer available. So it's another one manufacturer that had a material out there that's gone by the wayside. But anyway, this is what I chose to use because, and here are some of the tools. And if you notice, the plastic material out of the package was cut into sheets 8 feet tall. We'll get into the dimensions, but 8 feet tall. The plastic one cut the best with a good old number 11 X-Acto blade that you see in the upper right-hand corner. However, I knew I wasn't going to have enough and I'd have to make siding. So again, I used that. And if you see down below, however, for cutting the tin foil, once it had the ridges in the siding, the scalpel worked best. However, it only worked good across the ridges. If you were cutting the siding vertically, the tin foil, the scissors, that happens to be a scissors picked up at one of the trade shows. It's a surgical scissor. And then due to the fact years ago, I see on the left for a cutting guide, rather don't use thin rulers anymore. Years ago, when I was doing my for one of the first railroads I built, putting up sheetrock, my son walked down the basement, said, "Hey, Dad," I turned around and I took off the tip of my thumb. So I had to have surgery and all the good stuff. And so as a result, I always use now a good wide rule when I'm working with, be it whatever, cutting tools. Anyway, we get to the elevator and we're going to put on the siding, and here it is cut. Mike, and I hope I have his name, Schmitzer, if I got that right. You guys would know more, not better than I. Schmitzer, I believe. He put out a great email when I inquired about sheathing, and he was apparently sold the roofing, steel roofing, as well as the aluminum. And he mentioned 50 inches, which so you create the overlap in siding, and it was basically 8 foot tall. So here you see it applied, and you see that over on the right side, if you look at that shed on the left side, I'm sorry, that you see the black spots. My favorite material for putting together plastic buildings, and the whole thing was done with MEK, but to apply the plastic sheathing, you see it started to turn black. So there was some type of chemical reaction occurred between the plastic. So as a result, pulled out the old Tester's tube cement, which again, as you all are probably aware, is just a solvent, except it's got a much heavier viscosity than some of the real liquid solvent. So everything a toothpick was used, put on the sheets that were cut scale 50 inches wide, 8 feet high, overlap to get as Mike in his email stated, you overlap the sheathing, you get a 48-inch wide view. So that's what we did. And tedious, believe it or not, it's tedious, and it took a while, but eventually we got the one side done. And even with now all we had left was all the sides yet to go in the back. So as I say, it gets to be pretty tedious, but and then I realized, as I said before, that I wasn't going to be able to have enough of the plastic siding. So I was going to have to make some. So I did. And as you saw in that previous slide where the tools were, I used the plastic sheathing and I put the kitchen tin foil over it. That tool laying there is for doing dry transfer lettering, large, as some guys call it, rub-on lettering. And you have to go through each and every groove, and you eventually create the corrugated siding. And like I said, it was best cut with the scalpel and the scissors. Now, eventually, here we go. We got the whole thing, the elevator, got the sheeting on, except we still got the end. And at this point, I thought, well, I'll take a shot so you guys can see that there is a drive-through on that scale area, that it is open. And in many of the elevators here that I've explored, my uncle happened to work at one, and that was that Commander elevator, and that stood in Lonsdale, Minnesota. I built out of the Walters and that one was the corrugated. But anyway, so many of the scales were open. However, also many of them had doors, and we'll get into that. But so anyway, after some time, finally, and what I thought was an eternity of cutting and gluing and cutting and gluing, the building as the siding put on. The main pain, of course, is going around windows and getting up when you get around the door eaves. But the model was painted with then Model Master aluminum their aluminum siding, as they call their aluminum paint. That's been one of my favorite paints for many years, but I just used up the last amount of it I had, so I'm going to have to find another one. I still have their steel. I thought for the metal colors that the old Model Master was one of the finest on the market, and they got them right. Then for doors, windows, I'm into Vallejo water-based paints nowadays primarily. So that was done with Cavalry Brown is what I painted the windows and doors with. Then I was also, as you maybe already noticed in the last slide, here, now we get into, I couldn't wait at this point. There's more work to be done, but remember I said I enjoy doing scenery. So right away I got out the woodland scenics, threw down it's the blended turf woodland scenics, and I used the green blend. And if my memory is correct, the number's T49 on that. And then that's common sand out of the kids' sandbox for the dirt roads. And also, I like the sifted dirt from a baseball field rather than use pure black dirt for that type of work. The baseball field, if you pull it off around the home plate or the baselines, because of the chalk has worked its way into the soil with the gray, it gives you a kind of a black gray color. So I sift that many times, even over a blended turf, and eventually a lot of this blended turf that's there to see will get static grass. But the elevator now also, at this point, I started to play with the roof, and the rest of it painted. The roof looked pretty too new, so we started doing the weathering, and that's done with pan pastels. And this is a red oxide pan pastel put on with they have a sponge applicator tip. You could use any applicator and go ahead and put on a little weathering was put on. So the elevator is set in place. Obviously, the backtrack, which at first, if you notice that curve down there coming to it, which is the main line, I was thinking about putting a turnout in there, but to keep the siding of decent 3-car length, I would have to use the curved turnout, and they're around $75. And I looked at it plus tax, and I said, Also, being an accountant and having worked on cost of things like this, cost projects, I realized that the railroad is the end of the line, and there isn't going to probably be an extension. So at this point, we'll just use the end of the main for the siding on the elevator. But anyway, we got to ballast it, right? So, and that's the old foundry sand. I've mentioned to you, I had a friend who works at the foundry here in the Twin Cities that still does sand casting for manhole covers for the Twin Cities and surrounding suburbs, as well as they were casting brake shoes for the BNSF. But when the product goes into the sand, is pounded into the sand, into the molds, it's a white product, 50-pound bag sand. But when it comes out, it can be a black iron oxide or a tan color. So I got a sand from my friend, and I mixed the white and black, which gives me a similar ballast look that was on the former Minneapolis, Northfield, and Southern Railway, as well as on the Sioux line. So that's why I use it on my current railroad. And you see down in the lower left, the track has got ballasted, and we've replaced the map pins now with a bumper down there, which is just a Walters bumper. You'll also notice that I've now added, when I did the prior elevators, which you see the first one that I mentioned that had just scratch built its way up in the upper right-hand corner up there. That's the town of Little Chicago, and that's that elevator. This happens to be of course, from Randolph on the branch. And you notice also in the Eureka Center, I made it a commander, and my uncle worked at a commander elevator, and I used to go there in my teen college years, just to snoop around, and he'd give me a tour or whatever. And so that's the reason I use the name commander on the elevator. And those are decals I made for this one and the elevator you saw before. So now, once we have the elevators in place, labelings on it, now I start putzing with interior details, which you can see. You notice we start also. I like to bring what I call breathe some life into a structure, and that's done through mini scenes. And I've done a presentation for this group on the mini scenes on my railroad, many of them. But this is opportunity to create new ones. And you see, I grabbed a vehicle, parked it there, and then we took a, it happens to be, I guess, that's a lifelike 55 Chevy truck that I've done work to, repainted the front end, added mirrors. But you notice, started to do a little interior work. Those are sacks I cast. You can buy mini metals, put out some sacks for their trucks. So you could buy those, but I want to populate the interior of this a bit. And one end of the elevator will be feed, one of the other will be fertilizer. But so some of the sacks inside, the figures, you got the back figure is a commercial Woodland Scenics, and that other guy is a Pizer figure that I'm sorry, it's a Pizer figure, and that some of those come in white. Now I got a shot in there at the that I'll show you in a minute later, but those figures I love them because they're white. You paint them the way you want, and you can cut them up, and you don't have to fear cutting them and they're moving arms, etc. So anyway, we now on the other side, you see where the scale was on the elevator. There is a truck in there, as you can see in this scene. Here you see it. That's an old Magnuson model resin truck that I'd had in the drawer for a long time, and time I could pull that out and it would work here. It's an international harvester vehicle that Magnuson did, and it has a grill on it that's really 1963. My railroad, of course, set spring of 1955 late. So, but nobody knows that that's got a 63 front end on it. So this is the way it'll sit on the railroad. And that figure, obviously, to create a little activity, theoretically, driver's parked the truck on the scale and he's moving up to the office area. That's one of those Pizer figures I said that I cut the arm off, repositioned it so I could have the arm on the handrail. His leg, he was kind of in the running position, cut the leg off and repositioned it so he's walking the stairs. And the gaps were filled with MEK goop, as we talked about a little bit earlier, and then obviously figured and painted in. Okay, on the interior, so I'm starting to play with that a little bit. You notice I've added the doors, which turn inward. A little bit of detail. If you look at that right door on the right side, you see the hinges have been added. See they were black styrene rod, just cut easily and glued on. Now I wanted to use scale 2x6s. However, Walters used some of those in there where you see the stud wall. Some of that was already there from the molds, and that was 40 thousandths by 40 thousandths. So rather than start carving all that off, I just decided and went and got evergreen 40 by 40 styrene and created the stud wall, put the glazing in the windows is started here, and added an office door, may add yet an office window, which so they could see out when the dumping process was taking place. But so anyway, we have the elevator with the scenes. Here it is. And you see there, the cars have already changed on the at Chicago Western Interchange 2 weeks ago on my monthly operating session. I cut the first way bills for this elevator. And so a couple of the guys wanted the job because they wanted to be the first to switch the elevator. But anyway, and since that time, if you notice, I originally already you know, railroads are never done. We know that. And there's always work and things we can add. So you see, notice down below, I pulled out a Sylvan's model kit that's been sitting around. And that's, here you can see that's it's a 1953 Chevy sedan. They were popular in that era. They were one of the best selling cars and that's a Sylvan model resin kit that you've heard about. And the only problem is the 53 Chevys came in emerald green or spring green. This was my attempt, and it's a very poor attempt because it didn't come out. It's not light enough, but their spring green was lighter than that. And so that ended added a vehicle, and I'm in the process of building one more. There's going to be a truck added. Got to have a pickup truck. One of the employees got to be driving a pickup truck. So anyway, there you have the scene, the elevator. The growth is now, the railroad is expanded 3 feet. It will now keep an operator occupied for much longer. And due to the extent of this extension, it's a much heavier industry on the railroad. For the operating sessions, it may create a second Randolph. That way, I've had the Randolph turn, which serves these industries, and it may turn out we may have to add a second Randolph. So anyway, I had a little help with when I put out some emails regarding the building of this. Mike Schmitzer, obviously, with his expertise when he was in sales, provided roof and aluminum sheet siding. Dave Nelson, we talked about how to attach the foil to the plastic for what it's worth. I have a friend, the old instructions in kits tell you to use goo. He built a serene, beautiful elevator with goo, put on the sheathing, and in about 3 months' time, it was so deformed because of the acetone base to goo that it could not be saved. It had to go in the trash. So you do not want to use or go by the old thing of goo that manufacturers said to use to attach something to plastic. And of course, Mike had mentioned Ron's presentation. Ron was kind enough, and through his presentation, which has some great information, as Ron can, for example, he talks about the closest to the prototype is the evergreen siding, which is the corrugations they're spaced at 30 thousandths rather than the 40 thousandths. So I want to say thank you to all you guys again. And that is it. We're done for the night, guys. I'm going to get out of here.
All right. Thanks, Lester.
Great you're
job.
very well.
See, I think I can.
Can you, let me see, stop sharing. Where are you? I may have to go back.
Yeah, they've changed stuff here. I don't have the.
They've done so many different changes lately. It's terrible. Let me, God, I don't understand. You can't stop it either for me?
Does escape help you at all if they've got a button?
I don't think so. It used to be they had a control.
Oh, you see that little X on the right hand side of that thing? I think either that or the X in the middle will probably do it for you.
The X in the middle. See, I'm on a laptop. Let me
well, we can see your screen, and I can see the menu at the bottom of your screen.
Okay.
A red X in the middle and a red X.
Yes, that's
stop share.
I can't read. Excuse this. It's a gray head error here. It says stop share right under that. I'm sorry. My apology.
There you go.
My apology. It says stop share right underneath.
That's all right. They've taken away my ability to stop sharing.
They have.
Others. Yeah. So apparently I can, if I start, I'm the only one who can share when someone else is sharing and knock them down. So I guess I can do it that way, but.
Does anybody have any questions, by the way, on any of that? Anything that?
Well, you have that one spur that said Chicago Great Western on the side of, is that going to be expanded?
No, it originally was a 4-car interchange, and it is now 6. that gives me enough for the Chicago Great Western. It's large enough for now for my operation. I have my operation on an operating night. I have all of mine. I do not have staging at all. All of my trains are built in the yards, and my interchanges, which there are 4 of, which also were, I use the Minneapolis Northfield and Southern prototype, as that's where my railroad was kind of focused on. It's not that it's an exact copy of the prototype, but that's the basis for operation. Their cars came from their local industry, which mine does, or I put on about and box usually about 30 to 35 cars off the interchanges, and then new cars every operating session. There are 14 individual sessions. I will bring on a new about 30, 35 cars. And that's, so the interchanges provide the new, are really the staging. I call them live interchanges, is an old term for them. And that provides the cars coming into the yards for the yard masters to actually build the trains as on the prototype rather than come out of staging. So, but 6 cars, my Little Chicago interchange 6, my Great Northern that has about 12, and a siding to allow it to go to about 14, 15 cars. And on the other end, the Milwaukee I have, that has a west end and east end, and each of them hold about 5. So, a total I can bring on about 35 cars currently. And if necessary, we'd figure out a way to add more to it if we had to. But it serves the current operating real well, and it should for several years easily. Anything else? Nope.
I stayed awake.
Well, all right. Glad you were able to stay awake.
Yes, I used to have a model train store. I heard you mention that you ran out of a certain kind of metalizer paint. I've got a bunch of that stuff in my basement.
Well, this is me. Everybody has their favorite type paint, but and from the solvent days, I was a Floco, but Model Master, when they brought out their aluminum and steel, it's a solvent base, obviously, so mineral spirits for cleaning. But I really thought that was the finest paint I thought out there that really brought out an aluminum look as well as a steel look. And I just ran out. My last bottle is gone. So I figured I'd have to change over. I've started experimenting with Vallejo aluminum, water base, but it's still not the same as the old Model Master. So,
well, if I have any aluminum, do you want it?
Well, I'd love it. We can figure out a way to transfer that to the shops.
I'll send you an email.
Fantastic. Appreciate it. And Dave, again, thank you for your help.
Oh,
you woke up this old gray-headed with my transfer tape was in the drawer, but the old gray-head, just like tonight where I couldn't see stop sharing underneath the red X.
Long so that you can learn how to build a deck, follow along. Boy, was that some serious foreshadowing. Things were actually.
All right.
Where's that coming from?
I'll never tell.
Oh.
All right, guys. Thank you for coming tonight. We're back at it next week with Doug Harding is going to do his poultry car presentation from Collinsville. And it is much expanded and terrific. I saw it myself. And so you won't want to miss that. I do have several recordings that I need to get up on the YouTube. So I'll do that in a week or so. But we're back in business here. So thanks for coming tonight. Thanks very much for presenting, Lester. And we'll see you next week at 6:30 Central.
All right, guys.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
That's right.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.